cover. Welcome to the fourth, is it fourth? The fourth session in our Practical and Accessible series, where we talk about both the practical aspects of a tool as well as making them accessible from the ground up. And so today's session is going to be on Zoom and remote meetings. So specifically, we're going to talk about Zoom, but then we're also going to give some tips and advice for remote meetings that also will apply to if you are using Google Meet. So I'm just going to kind of dive in and explain my part, and then Marisha is going to do her part. So in general, I do the digital component, which is mostly the practical side. Talk about the tool, talk about the features that are available, things that might be new and upcoming. Just make sure that if people are new to the tool, how it's going to work, things to consider when using them, and kind of the basic foundations to create a level of digital literacy for yourself on a particular tool or feature. So I'm going to dive into that part, and then Marisha is going to talk a little bit more about accessibility and her part in a little bit. So first thing that I do want to make sure that I cover with everyone is that Zoom has recently updated. So we are going to ask you to just be aware of this and to update your computer. I'm going to go ahead, and I realize I don't have the link. It's on the slide deck, but I'm going to go ahead and put the link in after Marisha starts. So I'll grab that for you. But for this session, we are going to be using the latest version of Zoom. This version we will be utilizing and referring to in this session. So this gives us a pause just to let you know that there is a new version, and that to be on the lookout for any notification prompts. Zoom is supposed to give you pop-up notifications, but sometimes if you ignore them, they don't all, they either go to the back of the screen or whatever the case might be. You also can manually update Zoom without waiting for those pop-ups. And again, I will share the link to how to do that. Zoom has a great instruction, so I'm not going to recreate the wheel. I'm just going to make sure I give you the link to that. The second also is that the interface
in there, so that's all set.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So the interface will change, which means the buttons and features may look different, and they may change location from what you're accustomed to, but there wasn't a radical major update. All the features are still there. It's just a couple of little bit more nuanced changes to let you know. And then also as a reminder, while these updates offer great features, and they often are actually about correcting bugs in the system and updating security to promote security for you and your students. So as a lot of times when people ignore the Chrome updates, I would also say just be careful of Chrome updates and also Zoom updates, because these are usually related to security as well as making the application function properly so that it doesn't quit on you in the middle of sessions, that it records properly, that you don't end up having any issues. So the link, as Marisha graciously put in there, is provided to you, and we will also put it in the post-session email as well. So covering the session today, the first three sections are going to be mine, and they're going to be Zoom basics. I'm just going to go over some basic things to be aware about, interface components, things that are in Zoom that you may or may not know about, but they are kind of the underpinnings of a good kind of Zoom experience. This is not going to be how to use Zoom specifically, because that workshop in itself I could cover, and it would be more than the 2 hours itself. Zoom does have some really great resources, and we do have a Zoom page that we have built out and developed, as well as some other updated materials. So if you need some basic understanding of how to Zoom, we'll cover a little bit of that, but for the most part, because we are in Zoom, I can't go over the menus live. A lot of this is going to be screenshots for you. And there. Second of all is we're going to talk about settings. Settings are probably one of the biggest thing, and they're all over the place. It's one of the things I would just give a suggestion that the settings feature is in the app, is in your account, is in your profile. Hopefully I will be able to cover some of it to make it a little simpler, but sometimes people talk about go to your settings, and in Zoom, it's not one of the most convenient things about when people are talking about what settings are. Hopefully I'll be able to alleviate some of those questions, and also just make you aware about it, that if you have a moment or two to play around, this is what you could do to change and better your experience for you and your students. And then the last thing is going to be navigating the Zoom interface. Going to talk about some things that are really crucial for you to be aware about. And also we'll talk about new features that have been around for about the last year, but some things are brand new within the last few months. And also that they've made an interface change. So just to kind of cover that and make you aware of it. Marisha's going to cover the accessibility in Zoom. She's also going to talk about accessibility for recorded lectures, and then also talk about incorporating it into Zoom as a wonderful bonus feature if we have time, which we do. The first thing that I want to talk about is going to be Zoom basics. So first thing just to be aware about that here at STCC, in order for you to get a Zoom account, you can use Zoom without an account. You can be a person who actually just participates in webinars, but you can also have an account. I like just to, for the case of this recording, just to let you know that all accounts need to be set up through IT, and I've put the link in the chat as well. But if you do not have a Zoom account, or if you know someone who doesn't and goes, how do I get one? You just have to write to IT, which is in your Google Mail is to just do @help desk, and that should also automatically populate the help desk email account. Next thing is just to kind of be aware of who supports what, especially for STIC. So getting started and support. Installation and accounts, that's going to be the STIC IT help desk. If you need an account, if you need help installing on your computer, especially if you have a PC, and also if you're having any issues logging into the interface. All of these things, because we have what is considered an actual license to Zoom, that is all handled through IT, and you want to just make sure if you're running into any problems with those three things, account, installing, and logging in issues, that you contact the help desk for that. When it comes to using features and facilitating support and how to actually facilitate a Zoom session, if you're having issues about how to actually use specific tools or features, you can reach out to Marisha and I as instructional design staff, or visit our website. But also that Zoom has an official Zoom support and help center place, and they have really great short form videos. So just want to make sure that I cover that with you, let you know that that's how support works. The technical kind of thing is IT, and all of the instructional facilitation stuff, you can work with us on that.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Where do we get the information, the official Zoom? On the last page, it said the official Zoom Help Center. Is that linked somewhere?
Yep. If Marisha, you could do me a solid and grab me that one. We'll also have that in the chat, but all the links that we will be covering today will also be in your follow-up email as well. So just to let you know that.
Okay.
But like I said, that website is amazing. It covers everything. The only thing it's not going to cover is the facilitation part and the how to do it here at STIC. So keep asking questions. We love it. So, and I'm being totally serious about that. We love being interrupted with really great questions. So first thing that I want to do is kind of talk about settings. And one of the things that is awkward, is we are using Zoom. So for me to show you a live demonstration is actually kind of difficult for the actual interface, because it will do this weird mirroring thing. So what I did is I took a bunch of screenshots. And so this is not going to be the most engaging and interactive one. I will let you know that after every one of these sessions, we do have a page up and we do have videos. I will have materials that kind of go over this live as a demonstration. I just didn't want to play a video for you in this session. So I wanted to cover this and give you tips and advice. And then from that, we'll have videos you can watch. But also just to let you know that for this session, we're going to do some screenshots. So the first thing to let you know is that there is zoom.us. So zoom.us is actually where you log in, and that is your main Zoom online interface. Often when you go to zoom.us, it's going to look like this. It'll have on the left-hand side a little graphic and image, and then you're going to get a sign-in window. And either you're going to put your username and password in there, or just to give you a heads up, at the very bottom, you're going to see a button that says SSO. See if I can use the little annotation tool here, if this is going to be helpful at all. Maybe not. Right here on the screen, hopefully you're seeing me click on that. I don't know. But over here, you're going to see that button. When you click on that button, it's going to take you to that STIC login page that you get for Blackboard, you get for your Gmail, all that. You can log in that way. And that is going to ask you for your institution, and that you would just type in the following. You would not stuck. I love autocorrects. You're going to type in, there you go, stcc-edu, and that automatically will take you to that page. So just to let you know, this is going to be the zoom.us interface. Once you put your username and log in, what will happen is you are going to be taken to a main page, and then we're going to talk about like actual settings. So I have to make sure that before I forget, we did something. Back one. Okay. Once you go into this main interface, this part I can actually show you on the screen. Go ahead. Right there. Okay. Sorry, it's a lot of navigating, sharing, changing. So let me do this. When you log into zoom.us, you're going to come to this interface right here. Let's do this. Yeah. Okay. You're in here. One other thing that you're going to figure out is that you kind of need to know the sequence of when you're sharing things and what windows to share. So when you first log in at zoom.us, you're going to come to an interface here. It's going to have a very much like Blackboard, a menu on the left-hand side. And then when you click on links on the left-hand side, you're going to have a series of components here that are going to walk you through your Zoom account. This is your own personal Zoom account. I am going to be using the digital learning one. So this is not Kyle's personal one, but your account will be set up like this. You're going to have a menu on the left-hand side, and then you're going to have your area here where all your meetings are listed. This is going to be meetings that you create and meetings that you are invited to. So you're going to be able to click on here and have see all of your meetings in one location. The menu on the left-hand side is going to have a series of components to your account. The first thing that I do want to point out is that you're going to have your profile, and that's just going to be what's set up for IT, and you're automatically by default going to come to meetings. At Stick, we only have meetings. We don't have webinars. Webinars are if you're doing large accounts, like large grouping things. So you're going to set up all of your meetings as meeting, all of your web sessions as meetings. We do not individually have web accounts, only like 2 or 3 offices do. And those are the ones that do the big trustee meetings and that kind of thing as well. To access different components, you will click on the links on the menu. What I want to point out today to you is going to be this section under here that is called settings. When you click on the settings area, you are going to see a series at the top that say general, meeting, AI, recording, calendar, auto conferencing, Zoom. Now, just to give you a heads up, you're also going to have all of those within each of these. As you click on them, they're going to also have a sub menu in it. So it's a little confusing. At zoom.us, this is where these are the settings for all sessions you create by default. You are going to be able to manipulate some things individually by session. But if you come into zoom.us under settings, these are going to be the settings that are automatically applied to every session that you create. When you create a session under meetings, you'll see a button here that says schedule a meeting. And this, when you do that, is going to ask you for the title, if you want a description, the date and time. But everything that you create in your settings will be applied to a generic meeting. And so when you create a meeting in zoom.us, this will be all of the settings that you've used will apply to any meetings that you create. Is that kind of making sense right there? Mm-hmm. Okay. So if I were to create a meeting, everything that I have set up in settings, that's going to be here. Your settings are going to be, as I said, applied to all meetings that you start and generate. What I do want to just really briefly cover is a couple of the really important menus for you to be aware of in settings. Why do we cover these? Is because a lot of times when people say, I wish that this wasn't here, I wish the setting was available, I wish that this didn't happen when I come into webinars or when I start a webinar with my students, why does this happen? Some of that is that the Stick has a default set of settings and you can tailor and customize some of the things that you would like. If you don't want students to come in starting with a webcam, there's a setting for you. You don't have to have them always start with audio and video. You don't always have to have certain things. You can also set your recordings to do certain things. So I'm just going to really quickly cover these things. Just to let you know, probably the most important menu item is going to be your general settings. General settings is going to cover everything around security, waiting rooms, your waiting room options, anything that requires a passcode. The default for the most part is going to require you to either have a passcode. So for example, require a passcode for new meetings, or have a waiting room, or require that all meetings have one security option. So some of these settings, just even clicking on it to see what their settings are and read through them, that's just really helpful to educate you to know when you open up a room, how's that going to work. So general is going to be for every meeting, how people enter the room. That's the basic gist of this general settings. So, and as you go down this menu, so this is this menu over here, as I scroll down, it's going to go to each of these sections. But for now, I just want to cover them. Security is going to be waiting room, that kind of thing as well. Scheduling meeting sessions, this is going to be when someone enters the room, does the video automatically start for the host, for the participants? You can change what kind of audio settings you have. You can allow participants to join before the host. If it's a meeting where you're setting up where students are supposed to come in and they're supposed to set up, you might want to have that be a setting that you have automatically, or you might want to set it up individually for each session. In meeting basic, this is going to actually let you make selections of how chat works, who has access to chat, who has access to certain features that are available. Are you going to allow people to be able to use chat the same way as the person who is running the webinar? You can also limit the amount of emojis to people. You can eliminate that, for example, in some of my sessions, like my personal account doesn't allow for people to chat, like it allows them to chat directly to me. And sometimes you want to turn this off if you don't want to get interruptions and people are chatting you specifically direct back and forth kind of thing. So you can have it that anyone who chats in the whole group has to chat. People can't chat with each other back and forth. That's what kind of some of the basic settings are. And again, I tell people, I just look at this and I read through all of them and I was like, no, I'd like that. No, I wouldn't like that. I don't know what that is. I'm going to go learn more about that. So that's one suggestion of why I bring up the settings menu. Setting meeting advances. Do you want to have the opportunity to set meetings where you can have a QA? Do you want to have breakout rooms? Do you want that button to be available to you or anyone you give host access to? You can turn some of these things off. One of the ones that is incredibly helpful is email notification. This one is going to be that you get an email when you have a cloud recording that's available, so that if you put that in your class, if you want to link it to your course in Blackboard, which is what Marisha's going to show you later, that kind of is going to let you know all that. Additionally, if you want to send it to people who hosted, if you want to have everybody participating in the host role, you can set that so that everyone knows that a recording is available and not just the host. Additionally, you can get notified if someone is joining before the session, and you can also get a notification if the meeting's been canceled so that you don't have to attend. You're just going to get any kind of notification of that. You can set that up. And again, we have two separate accounts. We have the CODL one, which is the one we use generically, and we kind of have some agreed upon how we conduct these sessions, but our individual ones might be different. And to just change any of these settings, you just toggle back and forth. The last thing, which is just going to be helpful, is that your meeting attendants will receive in the language based on their browser or profile settings, and you can choose languages which your expected attendees will receive content in to edit. And so there's a bunch of languages here you can change if you wanted to. The default is going to be English. And then also, if you have, for some reason, have the need for another individual to have the ability to schedule for you and utilize your account like privileges, you do have the ability to let someone else assign scheduling privileges. Not so much important for faculty, but if you're a program director or if you're a dean, this might be a feature that you want to do where if someone's setting up, it's going to be on behalf of. And it's just to let you know that that's an option to be available. I'm going to scroll back up to the top because when you scroll back up to the top, now this is the part that's confusing. There's a lot of settings. So that was just the basic general settings here. So if I scroll up to the top, you're gonna also have meeting settings. And those meeting settings are also gonna have settings to them. Again, that kind of thing. There is also, and I'll talk about this towards the end, there's a new feature that allows for you to have AI be used for some of the components in Zoom. What I do want to just let you know is that some things are automatically locked down by stick. You could read about a really great feature, like I really like this meeting summary with AI thing. I think it's kind of cool. But from a higher education standpoint, I would understand why it's locked down, because what it does is it takes what has been said in the meeting and makes a general summary up. That would be great for lecture materials and things like that. But again, for privacy and security purposes, it's probably locked down for that reason. So just to let you know that some things are going to be locked down that you can't change. And then some things as you read through them. I am going to talk about this very cool thing that comes with recordings now that will be available to you. And I can show that to you later on. But this is just to let you know, you can also change your recording settings. You can change a bunch of different features. You can also, just to let you know, if after you have done a session, you can have different components of your session recorded and then broken apart. So every time I do a recording, an audio file is created, the active speaker on a shared screen. In my personal one, I have one where the video is not attached. So you're only going to see whatever's been projected onto the screen. That's going to be available. You can set it up so that Zoom will break apart your recording. So if you wanted to make it a podcast, if you wanted to just have your video, if you wanted just you speaking, it breaks it up for you, which I would say, depending on how you want to use your content for lectures, this recording section is really great because it does the work for you. Additionally, other components on here, you're going to see Zoom apps and Whiteboard. Not all of these features are going to be useful for you, but this setting area is going to be. And again, new things like notes and clips and surveys, I'll cover that towards the end. But this is just to let you know, it's a really dense area, and I don't think a lot of people go to it, but this will change how you interact with the participants in your sessions. And if there's things that have frustrated you over time, take 10-15 minutes and go into this area. And so hopefully that's as much as I want to talk about this. I already talked about it a little too much, but that's just to let you know that this entire section on zoom.us is your settings that cover all sessions you generate and create. Now, that changes my slide deck a little, so I just want to kind of come over here quickly and come back to sharing. So the next thing I just want to show with you, and this is the part where I have to go back to my slides because I can't show it to you in a live session because I'm in the session itself, is your app settings. So you have your online settings that are for your account as a whole, but you get the Zoom app and it's downloaded to your computer. Once it's downloaded to your computer, there are going to be settings on the actual app. When you have the app and you click on the button, you're going to get an initial interface, and that interface is going to have your new meeting, your join button, your schedule button, and your share screen meeting. But it's always going to have a little box that has all the meetings that you're scheduled for. So if you've been invited to something, that window is going to appear. You're also going to see atop the screen all of these other features that you that are available, but we don't use. We don't use Team Chat. We don't use. I think we don't use Team Chat, and we don't usually use contacts. But the other features, like I said, I'll talk a little bit about those in a second. Those other features, you can access them from this interface as well. So sometimes you get an invite and you go to your Google Calendar and you click on to get to a meeting. If for some reason that meeting link is broken or that's not how you go to it, you can always click on your Zoom desktop app. This interface will come up and this will let you see what meetings you have scheduled for you, but they will also usually have the link to the meeting that you are attending next. So if a link is broken for some reason on your Google Calendar, you can always sign in to your app, and your app will let you go to that meeting as well as your zoom.us account. When you are, yeah, go for it.
I am so sorry with the questions on the previous screen.
Please. Yeah.
On the previous screen, can you create a meeting there?
Yes,
If you
so
wanted to
those,
oh, where it says new meeting, it would go into
yeah,
that, correct?
you
Okay,
just
that's
click
what I
that
thought I
button.
did. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
done
and
that
then it's
before.
gonna
Yeah,
give you a little,
okay,
yeah. And
okay.
that's the awkward part because across the campus, when you ask somebody how they set up a meeting, they set it up either through their Google Calendar, they set it up at zoom.us, or they set it up here. So if you've created it here,
Right,
you're doing
okay,
exactly one
okay,
of the ways to do it. Yeah.
okay,
There's no right or wrong way. This is why I was like, this is the confusing part. There's 3 ways to make meetings up. And if you don't know the other 2 exist, when people talk about it, you're like, what are you talking about? So
okay.
this
You
is
know,
just another, yeah, this is another
yeah.
interface to it.
Yeah, I was getting a little confused thinking, I don't think that's how I do it, but I see it
Right.
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's zoom.us. Now
Hmm.
there's the Zoom app. You're doing perfect if you're doing it this way, Debbie. And then
Yeah,
once you get in here, you're gonna see that you're gonna have and actually again up at the upper top of the screen, I don't see there's a little tiny gear button. That gear button is going to be your settings for the app. And when you click
okay.
on that little gear button, this is where again it's another button that says settings. But these settings are the settings for specific sessions and your use.
Hmm.
Zoom.us is your defaults for every meeting you ever create. This is the settings that are about the application. So, how you want your video to be displayed, how you want your audio to be displayed, the things that are personal to you participating in a webinar.
Okay.
So you're going to be able to adjust those. You
Hmm.
can do those at that little gear before you ever go into a session. However, most of the time, none of us see that little gear. We get this screen. We'll click on go to a meeting, we get the box, and then we get a thing that says join the meeting. It says join audio. So that is usually how we all get into Zoom. We get a little box there and we click on Zoom, join audio or don't join audio when we close the window. When we do that, we're going to then, we have what are called in-session settings. This is the same as that little gear on the outside. It's going to let you pick what your audio is for this session. It's going to let you pick your what your settings are for audio and visual here. It's also going to be how you're going to share what video you're using, all of that as well. So it's just letting you know that the word setting gets used a lot. Zoom.us is predominantly your settings across the board. Your application on your desktop of your computer, or if you're given a link, those settings are just usually set for individual sessions that you're going into. So when people say fix your settings, are they talking about your settings across all of your accounts that sessions you make? Or are you talking about changing settings for an individual session or session you're attending? So that's why I was like, I like to just kind of cover that. Is that kind of all making a little sense? It's, it's okay if you're not 100% getting it, but I just want to like clarify that, there's a lot of settings to just kind of be aware about. With all of these settings, once you get these settings, you're going to actually get into Zoom. You're in it right now. You can start clicking on buttons as we're talking now. But as I just mentioned, we were just in there. We got to entering a meeting. We got our windows. We selected our settings there. And now this is just to let you know that the interface has changed. If you have not updated your Zoom, it's going to look like it always has. However, the newest version of Zoom has had some changes. The changes are going to be that you're going to see a button that has a heart and it says react. That is a new button for showing emotions, emoticons, anything where you raise your hand gestures. That in the past, I think was actually called gestures. So that's just to let you know that that new feature with the heart is the same as raising your hand, showing a reaction when somebody puts something up. Additionally, in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see a button that says view. And then there's 9 little dots to it. When you click on view, that's going to let you see, do you just see the speaker and their content? Do you see all of the people down the window in a gallery? But there's also one, so there's 2 things. There is multi-speaker, which is anybody speaking is going to be blocked off, and that you're like, so if Marisha and I were both talking at the same time, it's going to put all the people speaking in a box on the screen. But then they have one called immersive, and I'm just going to warn you, it is very it's a little bit distracting. And if you don't have the best internet at the moment, it's going to probably cause you a lot of issues around delays. But immersive actually puts everybody in these little like cartoon interfaces, and you all sit together like on the screen. I don't know if it's going to let me do it here. But I can show it to you after I unshare. So what it does is it actually puts like, you're all sitting in a room in a chair, and it puts your head on the chair. So it's a little bit weird, but it's a new feature there. And then also, if you want to change the color of your Zoom, you can do that as well. Is that working? I don't know what it's doing right now. Okay. So I think if I unshare, we'll all go to a screen in a second.
I
So
think
actually,
the view is per user, so it's
Is it?
whoever wants to turn it on. So even while you were still screen sharing, we were immersive at the bottom, and then your screen.
Okay. Well, because like right now I took share off, and I'm sitting in a lecture hall. Or is everyone else sitting in a lecture?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
selected lecture hall. Did everybody select lecture hall, or did somebody?
No, I think as the host, if we do this, it forces everyone, as long as you're not screen sharing.
Yeah, I didn't select
I choose,
anything.
like, if we go to the fireplace room instead?
I think it should update it in a second. Yep, see it says loading.
And I are hanging out by the fireplace.
Yeah, so this is just to let you know, this is another option. It might be fun and entertaining, I think, but just to let you know, just like if you're showing your video, if you're in a place where you're in a car or you're in a place where you're on wireless and it's not stable, that's going to slow down the actual webinar itself. So that's kind of just letting you know, yeah. So like Marisha is the host, she's at the front of the classroom, and I'm like, hey, like I'm being disruptive student kind of thing like that. So it's just to let you know, like just to let you know, that's a new feature that's available, and it's also I think it's kind of cool, but it requires participation, people knowing about it, and also that if your bandwidth is low, this is going to potentially cause some lag on people viewing it. So that's just to also let you know there. All right, I'm going to go back to screen sharing. So, but like I said, excuse me, I think they're just doing a lot of stuff to make things more interactive. Excuse me, again, for people. So that's also just to let you know that those kind of features are there. If you also like, Zoom has a black background. It lets you change your meeting wallpaper to red, blue, green, I think. So your whole entire screen, the border will change colors if you play with that. So those are new features that are there. I also kind of wanted to let people know, a lot of times people don't know how to change that. And so you could just click on that little 9 dots and where it says view, and you can change the view up if you'd like. And just to know that. Let's see, next slide is going to be host tools. So this one is just a little bit to be aware of, is that the host tools is like a little armor. It looks like a little shield. And this is going to be how you can make adjustments to participants in the session. So if you want to shut things off or turn things off, you can go ahead and do that here. Before, this information was in 3 different places. They kind of merged it into one pull up, and I call it a pull up because it doesn't pull down. And that's just to be aware that the host tools are available if you are the host of a meeting. If you're not a host, you won't see that button. Additionally, when you are in the app, and this is just to prepare you, if you click on a link and you're taken to a web browser, your menu is static. You see all the tools across the board. However, if you're in the app on your desktop, it's called a reflexive design. So the screen actually is reflective to the screen diameter. So if you're on a 12-inch monitor, your screen might slow up and all of your tools will just get sucked into the more menu. If you're on whenever I'm on my 27-inch monitor and I expand the screen out, all the tools are displayed across and the more button isn't there. So just to be aware that if you're ever in a session and you're giving directions to a colleague or you're hosting back and forth, their menu bar may be different, because if they're on a smaller screen, some of those tools aren't across the board. They got sucked into the menu. I think that's the more menu because it's just expanding and collapsing based on the size of your screen. Last thing that I did want to cover is other tools to explore that are available in Zoom. So in January, we posted this, it's in the chat here. We posted new features in Zoom for spring of 2024. I did want to let you know that there are some really great functions and features there. Let me actually screen share the website for you with that. Get this window right here. So if you go to this page right here, where's my Zoom?
Kyle, we're not seeing it. We're
Yeah.
still seeing your slide.
It didn't refresh. That's why I'm like, I hit share before I got to this. Okay. When you are on this, when you come to this link, there's going to be a series of instructions and tools about new features in Zoom. Zoom has introduced AI into the interface, and there are some things that are available and there are some things that are not available to stick. This video that says AI new features in Zoom for faculty, I think it's only like a 3-minute video, but it covers all of the features there. Additionally, if you want to just read down, there's also a summary about the different components. The biggest thing to let you know is that when you do a recording and in your settings, remember when I said at zoom.us, under recordings, there's a function that lets you turn this really cool feature on. And what it does is, and is it gonna let me, I can't expand this out. Your recording, when you get a link to your recording, is now gonna have the ability to have the recording, a transcript. Then also you can designate certain parts of the video to have chapters that as you have natural breaks in your PowerPoint. So if you see that Marisha and I have 1, 2, 3, Zoom's gonna identify sections for you, and then you can manipulate them, but you can have chapters that the students now can click on, and you can write summaries up. So this lecture video now becomes interactive where there's a transcript, where you could write a summary about a particular thing, where you can also, there also as the video is playing, the transcript is gonna highlight. So it's gonna highlight and show the student as you're doing it. There's also instructions on how to edit your transcript. You're gonna have what are called smart chapters, and these basically group content together. And the AI is gonna determine that for you, but then you can also edit or delete chapters if the AI didn't do it correctly. You can also update the titles of the text if that's not accurate. And then it will also give you a meeting summary that will tell them what was covered, how did it work, and how do you edit it. I will say that if this is a feature that sounds super exciting to you, it's awesome, except Kyle is always a he, and he does this, and he does that. And I identify as she, and so I have to always go in and I usually actually identify as she or they, and so I go in and have to change all of my summaries. So just being aware, and like, so for example, I have to be very careful that I say STCC. I just realized on my screenshot for some reason it doesn't hear, I have to enunciate because SCCC sounds exactly like STCC. So just being aware that a lot of these things are auto-generated, they may not be accurate, but it gives the students an immersive experience that lets you have them see chapters. They can keep going back to a particular chapter they don't understand, that kind of thing. So it's a really great tool if you want to use some type of interactive lecture component. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be the best thing to use all the time, but if you're doing something and you have one lecture a week, 14 of these where you have them all set up and you give them out to your class and they click on this and this is how they watch their videos, it's kind of awesome. You also have the ability to do next steps. So you can actually put in here, like, make sure to log in, your faculty will track participation. Like I actually put next steps for the next thing that they were going to do in my recording. So that was just to let you know that, like, you can also say, what do you, after you watch this video, what are you supposed to do next? So the AI companion is really super helpful now. There's also a notes feature, which lets you share notes across all the participants. There's a clip feature that lets you take any of your videos and do a 2-minute single clip on it. You can do up to 5. So if you have a lecture and say you use a particular set of terms and you want to have that video available where you're just covering those terms, you can make a clip up and then share just the clip, not the whole video. Or if you want to do a teaser video for your students, being like, this is what's in this week, and you have that like a little section of your video to show them, you can do that as well. And additionally, Zoom has come up with a lot of whiteboard components where if you want to do different drawings and graphics on the screen, you can do that as well. And it will actually, some components, like if you have the topic, it will generate a framework for you. So those are going to be really new features that are available in Zoom. And I just think I have just 2 more slides, and then I'm going to hand it off to Marisha. Here. So those are new features. Those are things that are interactive that students will directly see. Features that people aren't as familiar with, but I just want to make sure in case you'd like to do this, you can have templates in Zoom. This is going to let you create a customized layout where if you had a particular icon or look that you wanted to have, if you had any particular elements that you wanted to attach, if you have a standard whiteboard you wanted to use for, say, lab webinars, if you had, like say you were doing a lab webinar and you were doing a lecture webinar, say you had certain things you wanted to give to students, you could actually attach those particular whiteboards, the polls, if you have surveys, anything that you do, you can attach them and create a template. What that means is that whenever you go to create a Zoom, you have your branding, your all your stuff is linked together. You can include your description in your template. You can have the same title. And then when you create one, you select the template and Zoom auto fills all that in. You don't have to keep cutting and pasting. So if you have different Zooms for different things, you can insert that as well. And also that it allows you to have different security settings. So if you're doing an open webinar to all prospective students and you want to make it a little tighter of security versus people who already have an account and can sign in, you can change that and your template will save those things as well. So if you don't want anyone to show their video, you can lock that down in a template. And so whenever you create those sessions, that's the settings for that, and those are the sessions. Example that we have is going to be that for student orientations, I make 10 orientations up at once. I have a template, and all it makes me do is change the date and add my hosts, and everything else, my description, my branding, all of my polls, everything I use with the students in that session is attached to it. The only thing I can't attach web links to things. So I can't, like my PowerPoint and all that stuff. It's the only thing I can't, which I wish they would let me do. Then the last thing, which you've seen it, Marisha, I believe, has one here, is that the polls tool is just really amazing and awesome. It's a way for you to get real-time engagement. It allows you to get you can choose it to be anonymous. It allows for flexible options to get some feedback from students. You can customize them per session. You can have a generic one across the board. It also gives you instantaneous results that you can share out to your participants so that they can see what the rest of the class is feeling like or the rest of the group is feeling like. And then also you can export that information. So if you wanted to keep track of particular feedback, if every session you ask for a pre-session and a post-session feedback, and you want to say, which sessions worked and where were students feeling it, and then you wanted to present it to your dean or to fellow faculty, you could also put that out there and do that as well. So those are going to be the template, the polls, and then I already mentioned the new features, but that new features page, which is linked in here, really some great functions. What I am going to say is that as you're getting used to this, always feel free to invite, make an appointment with Marisha and I. You can play with us at any time. If you just want an hour to play with the tool, play with the buttons, have someone to go over stuff with, you can do it in person with us, or you can do it online. Or if you just want to talk about what you think you want to do and what settings you want, always feel free to reach out to us. So that's going to be the core of the functionality, settings, and features that are available in Zoom. And I'm going to hand it off to Marisha. And I'm just going to put that slide up there, but then I'm going to stop sharing, and she's going to talk about the rest of the components related to accessibility.
All right. Before I jump in, any questions, anything else for Kyle?
I'm just wondering on the whiteboard, because you had helped me it was my very first time using the whiteboard, and I did it for an assignment for a course I'm taking, and I was very messy with it. You gave me that little, I forget what you call it, to write on the screen.
Stylus?
Yeah. my penmanship isn't great to begin with, so it didn't go very well. So, with the whiteboard in Zoom, I think it said non-AI, but I'm wondering if it was going to use an AI component at some point, maybe it would be neater where it would write it out neatly for you. Do you know anything?
So, you can actually, this is the awesome part about, so you can create, the whiteboard content generator actually lets you create whiteboards pre-class. So if you
Okay.
have stuff that you don't have to write on, like if you wanted to make a format up for a class, you could do it. And then minimally, you're either using the typing tool or that. I think it would be interesting. I know that I have to just check. I think that there actually is potentially there will be some AI related to things. I don't know if it's a stick thing, and that's what I'm trying to remind myself. I'll take a look while Marisha's talking. It might be that it's shut off for stick. But I do remember reading that says that what'll happen is that if you ask it to come up with something, it would generate a template of a whiteboard for you. They also have templates already. They have a handful of templates that you can pick and choose from and then alter them as well. So you can prefabricate stuff, and then again, using a template, you can copy it over and over again, or you can just pull it in every time. But my understanding is yes, that at some point there will be, but it also might be that there is one and we have it turned off because we have half the AI features turned off in Zoom, but they're available. Just Stick has them turned off.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Anything else? Anything else that you can think of for Kyle right now? And okay, and does anybody need a break before we go on to the next section? Nope. All right, then we're gonna keep rolling along. Okay, so we're gonna look at the tools that Kyle talked about, but getting into the accessibility, the usability of those tools so that the way that you're teaching, the way that you're interacting with colleagues can be the most accessible for anybody who is joining with you. So the first part is starting with accessible. So you're probably preparing some kind of materials. You may be preparing slideshows, you may be preparing images, you may be preparing documents, whatever it is that you're going to be sharing with your audience. As you build out that material, think about how your audience may be interacting with it. So are they joining on very small devices? And so you want to keep the font size fairly large so that even when a student is on a small device, they can still see it. Or maybe you have students who are low vision. So then again, having larger text, higher contrast text is going to be really important. Challenging lighting, right? And so a lot of these considerations overlap between the environment that the student may be in and any barriers that they may be experiencing. So somebody who is low vision is going to have the same barriers as somebody who is on a small device or in a place where there's a lot of glare, or maybe their battery is dying and so that they can't turn up the brightness of their device, something like that. And we do have screen reader users in our community at Stick. So screen reader users, rather than being able to see what is on the screen, they have the information that is on the screen read out to them by assistive technology. And in order for materials to be accessible to screen reader users, anything that is presented needs to have a text alternative. So if you're presenting text, then type it right into the screen. Or where Kyle had a lot of screenshots, those screenshots have text, but that text would not be accessible to a screen reader user. So then Kyle could add alternative text to those images. And then the alternative text describes what is in the image and is available to the screen reader user. And being a Hispanic serving institution at Stick, we have a lot of English language learners, and a lot of the considerations that I'm talking about apply to English language learners as well. So having simple language, so avoiding complex vocabulary just for the sake of having complex vocabulary. So if you have terminology that is specific to your discipline that your students need to know, of course you need to incorporate that. But using simple language that is easier to understand. Having the text on the screen that then is available to language translation tools. So being really cognizant of who is going to be in the virtual Zoom room with you and what can you do to make interacting with you as easy as possible. So that is as far as I'm going to go into in terms of preparing materials. But we do have a whole workshop on designing inclusive presentations where we're going to be diving into primarily Google Slides, but the features between Google Slides and PowerPoint are very, very similar. So that's coming up on June 10th from 1 to 3 p.m. Again, it's part of this Practical Accessible series. So looking at practical applications as well as accessibility and really getting into more of the details of slide presentations. So then once you have your content created, you want to share it with your learners, with your participants. So you can do that as a link in Blackboard or a file in Blackboard, depending on whether you're starting with a Google Slides kind of web-based link versus PowerPoint, more of a file. So you can share it as a link or a file in Blackboard. You can share it as a link or a file attached to the meeting invite. So if you have a meeting with colleagues, with any of the people in advising or in other roles at STIC, you may have a meeting where you need to share information. You can attach information right to the meeting invite the same way as you would to Blackboard, and then anybody who is part of that meeting would be able to access it. And then once you're in Zoom, in the session itself, again, you can share links and you can share files. So already in the session today, we've been sharing quite a few links, and you'll see that the way that we've been sharing links is we're sharing what is called a descriptive link. So it is text that describes where the link is going to go, rather than something that looks long and ugly and starts with HTTPS://. And that is really helpful for going back and figuring out, oh, which one was the link on updating Zoom to the latest version, and which one was the official Zoom support and help center. When you're using descriptive links, it's much easier to find the link that you're looking for as you go back rather than right in the moment. But it's also much more accessible, because when you have a screen reader user interacting with those links in your chat, the screen reader will read out link and then whatever the text of the link is. So if we have link updating Zoom to the latest version, it's very clear, it makes sense. We know exactly where that link is going to go. Whereas if it says link HTTPS://, no clue, don't know where that's going to go. So I'm just going to pause here for a second, and I'm going to go to a blank Google Doc. You can see the Google Doc, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I'm just going to do a really quick refresher on how we create those descriptive links. Because in Zoom, there's not a quick way to do it right in Zoom. In Blackboard, there's a very quick way to do it. And so today, some of the ones that I was pulling in either from a Google Doc or right from our slides. And so I just want to give you a refresher on how to create those. And so again, you can do it in Blackboard, you can do it in Google Docs, you can do it in Microsoft Word, you can do it in Google Slides. So whenever you're in a interface that allows for the word processing tools, you're going to write the text that you want to link to. So for example, I'm going to write Zoom meeting presentation. So that is going to be my descriptive text. So that is the text that is going to appear in the chat. And then I'm going to go to, so actually, let's say instead of Zoom meeting presentation, I'm going to say Zoom meeting CODL page. So because that's what I'm going to link to. So I'm going to say Zoom meeting CODL page, and I'm going to open the page that has resources for today's session. And I have this long URL, this long web address at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight it. And then I'm on a Mac, so I'm doing Command C. On a PC, you would do Control C. So I'm copying that link. I'm going back to my Word doc. I'm going to highlight the text that I want to link. And then I'm going to select the Insert Link button. And then all I do is I paste my link and I click Apply. So I know that it linked because my text turned to blue and is underlined. You can always double check. You can click on it and click on the link. Make sure it launches where you want it to launch. Good, I'm happy with that. And so then I can take that link, again, highlight it, again, copy it, and then I can take that link and put it, so I just put it into the chat in Zoom. I tap enter, and so now all of you have access to my descriptive link. So on the fly, this is a little bit cumbersome. On the fly, it's easier to get the link just from the address bar. So it does require a little bit of advanced planning, where if you know you're going to have a session where you're going to be sharing a lot of links, you may want to create a document for yourself where you have these links prepped and then you grab them right from the document.
That would help.
Yeah. And so, like, again, it's starting with that advanced planning and figuring out what are the resources that I'm going to need, what are the tools that I'm going to need, and what's the best way to get there. Yeah, Kyle, go ahead.
And also just really quick, if it is just you have a moment, or like if you have a Marisha or you have a Kyle, like a second person around, the actual bottom of the chat has an editor now that lets you paste that in, highlight it, and then change it. So it does actually let you do links that way. But again, it's just as Marisha mentioned, it is cumbersome, but I do know that I've played with it, and it just takes a little bit of practice. So you have to like write the term out and then attach the link.
Part of the new update. Yeah, so if you're in that chat, if you want to look at it, it's the format button. It's the first little button, looks like a T with a little pencil. And then if you click on it, it looks a lot like the text editor in Blackboard or in Gmail, something like that. So then
But you have to highlight the title first. So it's a little, it's a little cumbersome. And again, on the fly, it's harder.
But yeah, so that's another way of making clear descriptive links. And then if you do have files that you want to share, so if you have Microsoft Word documents, PDF documents, PowerPoint documents, there is a file button right in the chat. Files can be a little bit tricky because you have to upload it and then your participants have to download it. So it's a little bit, again, a little bit more cumbersome than a link. I find that something like a Google Slides or Microsoft or a Google Docs is going to open easier than a file. But if you do have files that you want to share or need to share, then you definitely have that option. All right, so then you've prepared your links, you've prepared your content, and now you want to prepare your participants. So some people that you work with are going to be really proficient at using Zoom, and others may be much newer to it. So we're all here, we're all learning about these features today. Your students are also going to be learners of Zoom as well as learners of your content. And so as a faculty member, as somebody working with students, you want them to really take the time during your lesson to focus on your content. And so you want to kind of give them the information about Zoom ahead of time so that they can cover that, get comfortable with it, so that when they're in the class with you, they have the cognitive load, the focus to work through your materials. So prepare your students by telling them how you want them to ask questions. So if it's a larger group, do you want them to put questions mostly into the chat? If it's a smaller group and you really want that engagement, that participation, do you want students to come on the mic? Do you want students to raise their hand? So the way that Kyle just did. So we're a small group, perfectly happy to have her come on the mic. But it was helpful for me to have a heads up that she wanted to say something because Kyle raised her hand. So within these slides, there are some links, and then the slide presentation is also posted on that page that I shared. But there are instructions on how to use the nonverbal feedback. So things like thumbs up, things like clapping, some of those reactions that students can use to interact with you while you're teaching. There are also keyboard shortcuts. So things that you can do on the keyboard instead of having to use your mouse. So that may be really important for somebody who has a harder time interacting with the mouse. Maybe they have an injury to their hands, or maybe they have a disability that is affecting their muscles, and using the keyboard may be a lot easier than using the mouse. So again, sharing those keyboard shortcuts with your participants is going to get them to be more prepared to engage with today's session. And besides the plethora of keyboard shortcuts that are available, I'm just going to show you the most common one that is just so helpful. So Melissa, you're on mute right now. Go ahead and hold down your spacebar. And now you can talk.
While it's
So while you're holding down your spacebar, you can talk, and as soon as you release it, you're back on mute.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so if you just want to make a quick comment, so Debbie, now you're on mute. And now
Okay,
you're
yeah.
on.
I can't find the hand raise though. That's what I've been looking for.
Yeah, so the hand raise is going to be under the react, so that heart-shaped symbol. So if you click on it, there's kind of two different ways to click on it. There's a little arrow, or there's clicking right on the heart. So if you click right on the heart, it should be down at the bottom.
All I see is play chime for raised hand and recognize hand gesture.
Right, so you're probably clicking on the little arrow that's just to the right of the hand. Try clicking right on the heart itself.
I don't see a heart, Marissa. I see a smiley face. There we
okay.
go.
So,
Okay.
Still has the older.
You probably need to update your Zoom. So it sounds like
Yeah, I'm going. That's right at the top of my list.
Yep.
I don't see the hand raise. Maybe
Kyle,
it's.
do you remember where the hand raise is in the previous version?
I think it is actually the little, I think it's the little person.
Try clicking on that little smiley face.
I just see a hand clap, thumbs up, crying.
At the
all.
very bottom, Debbie?
Oh, raising. Yeah, like right in front of my face. Are you still there?
Yep,
All
I'm still
sevens.
here.
Okay, so I just lost you.
Oh,
Did you minimize your Zoom?
Okay, now I'm back. I went to the smiley face, to the raise hand.
There you go.
there you
got
go.
it.
Okay, all right, good to know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really great.
I knew it was there from other. Why do I think I saw it at the bottom of my screen though? Like
So
when we were
may
in the
be-
department meetings or something, it was easy. Okay,
So that may be
Doesn't-
depending on the screen size, where Kyle was saying that depending on how big your screen, you may see more of the
Okay.
buttons all at the same time.
Okay. okay. I don't want you to think I was button in. I just didn't know where the button was.
You're doing good. This all works for me.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Marisha, I forgot to cover this, but on the button, this is probably one of the also confusing things, because Debbie also, you were not alone in this. The little caret going upwards is the setting for the feature or the tool, and then the button itself is the actual interactive component. So if you have a little
Yeah,
arrow
yeah.
next to it, that's going to let you say, I want to use it, or I don't want to use it, or I want it available. And then the button itself is the thing that makes it like you interact with your fellow participants. And it's a
Okay.
pain and no one explains that. So you did exactly
Yep.
what everyone does. So don't worry about that.
Thank you.
And then the last of the features that I wanted to show you is the captions tool. So Kyle talked about automatic captioning that is available. So go ahead and try turning it on. So you should have that show captions button right at the bottom.
Mhm.
And so as you turn it on, then you will see AI captioning what I'm saying as I talk. So again, this is automated algorithm. It's gonna make mistakes, but it's pretty good. And for anybody who is in a library and they forgot their headset, or they're an English language learner and they need a little bit of assistance with vocabulary, with language, this is going to be a really helpful feature. And so, like Kyle showed, you do have to turn it on. It needs to be on in your settings. But then once it's on, you don't need to do anything. Your students can just turn it on or off as works best for them. So you let them know this tool is there, and then they can choose to turn it on if that's helpful. All right, so I've been talking a lot about knowing your audience. You're not always going to be able to know exactly who's in the room. If you're teaching a class and you have a class roster, you're going to have a pretty good idea of who's in the room, but you may not know all of the barriers that your students are facing. You can ask them right at the beginning of the semester, what would make learning easier for you? And some students may share some of their barriers, and some may want to keep it private. If you're in a larger meeting, sometimes you may not even know who else is joining. But to the best of your ability, if you know who's in the room, you're going to know what are the necessary accommodations. So if somebody has an actual documented disability and they work through the Office of Disability Services and they have an accommodation, then you're going to get a letter from ODS and they're going to let you know what that accommodation is. So if that accommodation is something that you are providing, so probably the most common one is extended time on tests. But if you have somebody with an accommodation related to captioning, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Again, knowing that that is something that you need to accommodate is going to be really important. But you may also have students who have certain learning preferences or participation preferences. So you may say, I really want my students to have their videos on because that creates engagement. I can see them, I can see that they're engaged, I can see that they're interacting. But maybe that really doesn't work for your students. Maybe they're in an environment that they don't want you to see, even with a blurred background or a virtual background. Maybe they have restraining orders or other legal reasons why they can't come on camera. So again, being open to asking the question and being open to receive feedback as much as students are willing to share will be helpful to you to know why is somebody coming on camera, not coming on camera, speaking or only using chat, right? Some students are in environments where they may be able to listen to you with headphones in, but they can't talk because they need to be in a quiet space. So being open to receive that information is really important. And then what is the needed level of collaboration or interaction? So what is needed for your class to be successful? So there are certain tools like annotation tools that you can use within Zoom. And is that tool necessary? Is that tool helpful? Is that tool going to enhance the learning experience for your learners? Or is that tool, is using that tool going to create a barrier for some students? So the more you know, the better you're going to be able to target your specific learners. The more you're able to share your expectations and also know what the expectations are from them in terms of the learning environment that you're creating. All right, so I mentioned live captioning. So we looked at automatic captioning. Automatic captioning is great. It's a great first step, but it is not ADA compliant. So ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act. And if you have somebody with a documented hearing impairment, they will require captioning that is accurate to 99%, which AI cannot provide. So what will need to happen is there will actually be a human that joins your meetings and manually types in everything that is being said. So if you have Zoom office hours and you have a student with a hearing impairment that that student wants to attend, or if you have a Zoom lecture that that student wants to attend, then you will need to work with ODS to ensure that that captioning is provided to the student. So for anything that is not student related, that is staff to staff, faculty to faculty, that would go through HR rather than ODS. But for working with students, that would go through ODS. When that person joins your meeting or your class, there's just a couple really quick steps in terms of assigning them to be the captioner. And so I don't need to show you how to do that right now, but just knowing that there's something that you will need to do as the host of the meeting. And it's pretty quick and easy, just knowing that that's something that you'll need to do. And then again, reminding your students, how do they view those captions and those transcripts so that they have access to the information that they need. So all of that is happening before you actually start teaching. And then you get into your lesson, you get into your Zoom, you're ready to go. So as much as possible, try to record your sessions. This is going to give students opportunity to review. It's going to give students who couldn't make it an opportunity to still engage with your content. It's going to create a really excellent study resource where students can stop, rewind, and interact with the content at their own pace. I've talked a little bit about visual impairments and screen readers. So when you prepare your content, you may be adding that alternative text. But while you're teaching, you're also providing content on the screen. And as you're doing that, think about if you had somebody who couldn't see what was on the screen and all they could do was listen to you, would they still be able to discern meaning from your lecture? So if you have visuals that are enhancing your presentation, you can kind of keep talking and presenting your content, and those visuals will help students who benefit from it, but somebody who can't see them is not going to be at a loss because you're still providing the information. But then let's say you have a diagram, and that diagram has, let's say you have a diagram of the human body and you want to describe the way certain muscles in that diagram interact. You could say, and here you see that this muscle attaches to this bone, and maybe you're using your cursor, maybe you're pointing it out, but somebody who can't see it won't understand which muscle and which bone. Instead, when you're presenting, if you say that the tricep muscle attaches to the specific bone of the, so if you're more explicit with your language, that will help any of your learners get a fuller understanding of what you're presenting. So the same way as when Kyle was talking about the settings, but the settings caret as opposed to the reactions button. So by being really clear about the language, by being really descriptive of the visual elements that Kyle was presenting, it becomes easier both for those who can't see to understand what is being said, and then for those of us who can see, it makes it easier to find the information and get more detail out of the information as well. And that's where I say being aware of your audience and being careful with using annotations and whiteboards. Because, so if I take the annotation tool, I'm just going to turn it on for a second. So the annotation tool lets you draw over what you're sharing on the screen. So I may draw a circle around the title of my slide, and I may underline certain vocabulary. And so if you're using those annotations, just try to verbalize what you're doing with them rather than using language like this and here. And same thing, like if you're doing any kind of formulas, any kind of math, speaking out 2 + 2 = 4 rather than this plus this is 4. As we're working through our meetings, students may be putting questions into the chat. And there can be a lot of information that happens kind of behind the scenes in the chat of a meeting. That can be really valuable, but it can also be very distracting, and it can be hard for participants to follow what is important in the chat versus what is important in terms of what is being said in the main meeting. As a presenter, if you read what is in the chat and pull that into your main presentation, it helps your participants to focus and for everybody to be on the same page. And then using the chat for things like sharing of resources, sharing of links, and providing additional information that your students may be accessing. All right, and I just need to clear my annotations because otherwise they're going to be here for all of my slides. Okay, there we go. Okay, so any questions in terms of where we are with getting ready, preparing your students, preparing your materials, and getting into the lesson? Good? Okay, so you taught your lesson, you recorded, and now you're going to share that recording back out with your students. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you're providing accurate language and punctuation in your captions. So this is one of my all-time favorite memes. It says, "Let's eat grandma," and grandma gets really scared because she is in a house full of cannibals. But no, it's okay because it's "let's eat, comma, grandma." So grandma is being invited to dinner, not grandma is for dinner. And so punctuation just saved grandma's life. So all that to say, punctuation is important. With all of the excellent improvements to AI captioning, punctuation is still something that is mostly left out. Maybe it will come, but I haven't seen it yet. I'm starting to see a little bit of like some sentences, like with periods and capitalization, used to be just one continuous block of text. I don't really see commas in automatic captioning. So that's where to create the best possible captions for your resources, you can go back into your recordings and edit your captions for accuracy. So as you're going into caption editing, you want to keep a few things in mind. So if you have speakers changing, so like if Kyle and I are having a conversation back and forth, or I'm in the meeting and Debbie asks a question, sometimes Zoom will actually be really good about picking that up because it knows which account is speaking and each of us is in our own little square in Zoom. But if we're all sitting in the same room, or if two of us are in the same room and others are in different rooms, Zoom is not necessarily going to know that the speaker changed. So like when we present from the PDC, sometimes there's a speaker change, but it still looks like the same person is speaking. So you do want to identify who is speaking in your captions. If you're doing any kind of spelling out of words, so if you have terminology and you want to spell out STCC, you want to be sure that you're looking at that correct spelling. If you made a mistake in speaking, that's okay, and that should be part of your caption. So whether you have an here and there, or whether you repeat a word, or there's a little bit of stuttering, that's part of the captions, because that's part of the experience for somebody who can hear the content, and for somebody relying on the captions, the experience should be as comparable as possible. If you're doing any kind of recordings with nonverbal sounds, so think about movie captions that have dramatic background music and how that sets the tone, or if you have like movie captions with doors slamming or gunshots, those sounds really affect the way that a listener will perceive content. In an educational setting, those nonverbal sounds may be sounds that a software makes. So if you're, I'm just gonna let the nonverbal siren go by. So if you're doing any kind of software demonstration and the software makes a bing or ping, a lot of times those chimes are really essential indicators in terms of the learning experience for using the software. So again, you would incorporate that sound into the captions. And finally, long quotations. So if you're teaching poetry and you want to read out a quote, you can say something like, in the text by such and such an author, they said, and then you would actually put quotation marks in your captions and have an open quote where the quotation starts and the closed quote to end the quotation. So again, so it becomes clear to the reader that the information being presented is not original text of the speaker, but something that the speaker is reading out. So with that, I'm gonna pause with my slides and I'm gonna go into Zoom. And so this is again, the Zoom interface that we were looking at before, where Kyle was showing settings. And on our left-hand navigation menu, we have recordings. And so this is where all of the recordings that are associated with your account, as long as you record to the cloud, make sure you record to the cloud, then all of your recordings are going to be stored here. So I'm going to go to this top recording, Fall into Fall and Summer 2. I'm going to go to the one that says ScreenPal Video Quizzing. So this was one of the workshops from earlier this week. So I'm going to click on it, and I have all sorts of editing tools here. I can adjust the name of the recording, but I'm going to click right on the recording thumbnail itself. And this is going to take me into, pause it, those chapters that Kyle was talking about earlier. And then over on the right-hand side, I have the automatically generated captions. And so depends on how much time you have to invest in this. This can be a very time-consuming and painstaking process, particularly for something that is an hour-long recording. I may do this in a couple of different ways. I may hit the play button and then actually listen and make any corrections necessary, or I may just read. So by reading, I can often pick up most of the errors without actually having to listen to it, because I know what I said and I can find the most common errors. If I was talking through something that was vocabulary heavy, so Melissa, if you're talking about any of the technical terminology that your students need to learn, that's where I would focus first, because that's where the AI is most likely to make mistakes. And so for any of these blocks of text, I can just click on it. I can click on the little pencil. It actually takes me to the point in the video where I was talking. So if I did want to confirm that I got it right, I could play it. And then I can go in and make any changes to the text and just click the checkbox and make any of the edits. So I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you. It is going to take you time if you actually go to full accuracy. But for videos that students are using to review and study from, it can be a very valuable tool. All right, so that was accessibility and captioning of your recordings. How does that feel?
It's good.
That was great. While you're talking, I'm trying to see how I can incorporate, because I only teach, for Melissa's, I don't really know you, Melissa. I just teach online courses. So I'm trying to see how I can do it in, I'm not comfortable enough with Zoom to prepare, to present it to my students. So, I would love to. There's just so many great things here, but I would love to be able to incorporate it into, so that students, they all don't do their work on Monday. So during the week they can pop in and maybe that's a one-on-one session for us for a later date. Because my wheels are spinning. How can I do this? That's Students would know how. They can't learn that from me. They can learn certain things from me, but they can't learn the Zoom from me.
That are
So
fully online. You're probably not going to have synchronous lectures because the expectation is that the class is asynchronous.
AC, yes, it is.
But you can definitely have some pre-recorded videos. And so you can make those pre-recorded videos either by going into a Zoom meeting and being there by yourself and kind of just using it as your recording studio. You can also
Correct. Yeah.
use ScreenPal, just because ScreenPal will give you a little bit more tools. But if you want to just start with Zoom because you're more comfortable, that works great. And I know several faculty who are doing that.
hmm
But in terms of synchronous meetings, the one-on-one sessions with students, the small group office hours could be really valuable.
Exactly. Right. 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 Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So we have a little bit of time, so I am going to go through getting Zoom into Blackboard as just another feature that you may make use of. So Zoom has what is called an LTI, a way to link it into Blackboard and create a really seamless way for you and the students to get from Blackboard to Zoom. It improves security. It makes it really easy for you to access the Zooms and also for your students. They don't have to go searching for links or anything like that. Makes it really easy to find recordings. And the other great feature that I've seen some faculty use is using it to create study spaces for students where you can preset everything. And then if you select settings that allow for students to join without you, they can use the Zoom space and you don't even need to be there. So if students need to create a group presentation, and they want a Zoom space where they can go in, a couple students working together, create a recording, they can do that with this tool within Blackboard that you preset for them, and then you can watch it whenever it's convenient for you to provide them feedback or to grade their work. So I'm gonna jump right into Blackboard. and show you how that works. All right, so we are in my sandbox course, which is a little bit messy, but you'll forgive me. The easiest way to add Zoom is from the menu up at the top of your course menu. It looks like a little plus sign. When you hover over it, you get a drop-down menu, and then you're going to select Tool Link. So it's one of the tool links that is available in Blackboard. So you're going to select Tool Link, and then under Type, you're going to select Zoom Meeting. We're going to call it Zoom. Going to make it available to users so that your students can access it, and click Submit. So then you'll see that down at the bottom of your course menu, you have that Zoom link. Just like any other link on your course menu, you can drag it around, so you can put it wherever makes sense to you. You may want to put it in the quick links area, or you may want to put it in the top part under course content. Those are probably the two places where I would put it. So then what it does is when you click on that Zoom link, it connects between your Blackboard account and your Zoom account, because they're both linked to the same stick email. So then when you're here, you can schedule a meeting right from this interface. But what this does is it immediately makes that meeting available to those who have access to this Blackboard course. So that's where that security piece comes in, because you can schedule a meeting and it's available just to the students who are part of that Blackboard course. So if I click schedule a new meeting, so topic, that's your meeting name. So if you wanted just to make something for office hours, you can give it an additional description. You can say, when does this meeting occur, how long it is. You can make it a recurring meeting. So if you want, you can have it recur weekly, every Wednesday for 7 weeks. So you have a 7-week course, you have it recur every Wednesday for 7 weeks. And then it'll be scheduled for that specific time. You can add additional security features. So if you're doing office hours and you don't want one student walking in on a conversation that you're having with another student, you can turn on your waiting room, and then students will have to wait to be let in. And then these are those same settings that Kyle talked about earlier on, where whether the host or the participants have their cameras on or off when they first join, whether they're muted, and then click Save. You can also add polls, but I'm gonna go back up here. I'm gonna click on course meetings. And so now I see that we have 7 of those recurrences of that office hours meeting. Now, let me show you a different option. So I'm gonna click schedule a new meeting, and now I'm gonna call it no fixed time. And so I'm gonna make it a recurring meeting, but under recurrence, instead of daily, I'm gonna select no fixed time. So the great thing with no fixed time is it's kind of like a room with a door that's always open. So it's there, it's available, and anybody who has access to your course can come into it at any time. So if you want to create a space for students to come and interact with each other, you can say, okay, I'm going to make this no fixed time room. So you can say, we can call it group meeting space. We can say enable join before host. So you're the faculty member of the course. You're always going to be the host. Your students are going to be the participants. But if you say enable join before host, that means that students can come in whether the host is there or not. So students can come in and they can interact. And then again, I'm going to save that. And then if I go to the top and select my course meetings, Up at the top, I have my recurring group meeting space, and it's available at any time. So let's say you have 3 or 4 groups in your class. If you create one of these group meeting spaces, if group 1 is in there, they're using the room. If group 2 comes in and joins at the same time, it's kind of like a classroom with a door that's open. If somebody's in there, somebody else walks in, they walk in on their meeting. So you can say, okay, I'm going to make 3 or 4 of these meeting spaces. If you walk in on somebody, go to a different one. Or you can say, okay, I'm going to make group meeting space group 1, and then group meeting space group 2. And then students, please be respectful. If you're in group 2, don't go into group 1's meeting. Again, it's a room with an open door. Students need to have that respect and the control to not barge in on somebody else's meeting and disrupt it. So then once you're here, you have the option to start the meeting. Students will have the option they'll just have one button that says join. You can start or delete. So if you have recurring meetings and you're like, oh wait, no, June 12th, I can't actually have that office hours, you can delete just one session, delete this occurrence. And so then you have all the other ones, but not the one that I just deleted. And then up at the top, you have the cloud recordings as well as upcoming meetings. So if you have any meeting that you record in the cloud recordings tab, the meetings will be available both to you and to your students. Any questions about that?
I like that study space. I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah, it's, just another tool. A lot of students will just figure out their own way. They'll use FaceTime or whatever social media app that they're on, but giving them the choice that is kind of a little bit more structured and provided by STIC rather than having them figure it out is a nice option.
Is there any way to get a QR code for the meetings or not yet?
So with these meetings, because to create a QR code, you need a link. So in your Zoom app, you can schedule meetings and then you can create a QR code for those links. Let me see if, I think you actually, hang on. So if we're here, oh yeah, so there's the URL. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you click on the meeting name, it gives you more information about it. And so you have the link, and then you can use any of the QR code generating tools like Bitly, and then use that link.
Okay.
But because it's in Blackboard and students they can have the Blackboard app, or they can have Blackboard, like it's kind of like funneling them into one tool rather than giving them a bunch of different tools that they need to use.
I was just thinking I was gonna, like, we post our office hours. So I was just thinking I was gonna put the QR code on that.
Yeah, so the one tricky thing with this is once you create it in one Blackboard shell, it's just for that Blackboard shell.
Oh,
so if
okay.
you have office hours where you have one set of office hours for multiple courses, that's where you wouldn't want to use this. You would want to use the app and then just add the link to Blackboard. So
Okay.
yeah, you would just go to build content. Yeah, and then build content and either use web link or create an item with a descriptive link.
Okay.
From
I've been using Google Meets. Like I used Zoom and then I got away from it. So I haven't used it in a long time. So that's why I joined. I'm like, I better see what's going on. I need to update too. I don't have the current version either.
Yeah, so Google Meet is a great tool. It's Zoom is more feature rich, for sure, and Zoom allows for recording. In terms of all the features that are available, that's probably the most important one. But yeah, just there are a lot more tools in Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, Debbie, go ahead.
I'm not sure. I use Zoom to meet individually with students. So that means I have an account. I know this is a dumb question, but I must have an account in order to do that, correct? That's why I was looking through all my little stickies up on my desk and I don't find it, but it's there. If I've used it, it's
You
there.
actually don't need a unique password for it because that's what Kyle was showing at the very beginning is you can log in with SSO, which logs you in using your stick credentials. So the same credentials that you use to get into Blackboard or to get into your email.
So, yeah, so I must have it because in Blackboard, I haven't put it on the main screen, which is what I'm going to do. But, in the tools, it's there. When I click to make a meeting, I'm able to do it. So I must have an account. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, you have an account associated with your stick email.
It must automatically go in because I have no idea what or where the password is. So it must automatically just go in.
Yeah, you don't need a separate password.
Okay, good. Oh, okay. That was one of my questions. Thank you.
All right, well, that is all I had. Kyle, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Other than thank you all attending. No.
Thank you
Yeah,
for,
it's a great tool. I think that's big. The biggest thing is it's a great tool and there's so many features to it. So don't ever beat yourself up if you don't know all of it. Like I was driving myself mad trying to figure out how to just do the like half hour. And I was like, it was literally going down a rabbit hole and I was like, stop, Kyle. So yeah, if you're like, I don't know why this button is here or why this does, please know, this is just a really dense tool. It does so much stuff. It just also can be really complicated and slightly overwhelming.
and then it does updates and you think you got a handle on it and then all the icons change.
Yeah, so I prepared the workshop while Marisha was out, and I was so excited because I had all my screenshots and everything. And then I was like, update. So I did it. All the buttons changed. And I was like, I just
Yeah.
had a little moment where I was like, okay. So, and I was like,
And
the heart, like, so okay, I was like, so there's a universal standard for icons that like it's like a trying to adopt it for accessibility, and I have never seen the heart as an indicator of reaction, and so it was just very funny to me because I was like, some of these buttons, then they're Zoom specific, like that little shield is really, it used to be up in the left hand corner, and no one ever saw it. And like there's now a green shield. So that's the other thing is like there could be 6 shields. Just like when someone says go to settings, as I was diving into this, it was like there are 5 places where the word settings shows up and only 3 times is it the same thing. So yeah, please never beat yourself up because it is an overwhelming thing.
Well, thank you very much. It was very informative.
Yes, thank you
Um,
guys.
I appreciate
you.
it. And Melissa, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And I'm going to stop the recording with that.